What's going on, people? How are you all doing today? Thank you for joining us and welcome to episode 16. I can't even believe it. That means 4 months. Holy smokes. For no particular reason, with myself, Kerri Lewis, who is a speaker and coach on all things mental health and addiction recovery and energy, and Yankov, hypnotist and really super knowledgeable about energy and mental health and how to take care of yourself as well. So thank you guys for joining. What's up, Yanko?
What's up? What's up? I'm really excited. I didn't realize we got to episode 16, which is very exciting. We keep cranking them and they just keep on coming and it's exciting. We don't have a guest today, but that won't stop us from having a great show and talk about anything that inspires us to talk about.
Yeah. And, so I'm coming in from Boston and I think, there's two things that come to mind when I think about this conversation and our show in particular is one, the critical importance of having fun throughout our days. I think so often we overlook how critical joy and creativity and being present in the moment in that joy plays in terms of our overall experience, our mental health and wellness. And so I'm in Boston having just attended the Celtics parade because they won the championship. I don't really know much about basketball, people. I went for the experience literally. But still just being able to allow myself to be present in the moment and feel that energy just it infused me with joy and connection, which helps me show up more present for the show and connect with you.
That's right. Crowds tend to do that kind of work. Like sometimes, and I think that's. I might have had a conversation with somebody about it the other day. And we were talking about like how you feeling your own emotions and other things, and yeah, that's how the conversation started. That person went to a EDM concert or something like that in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I think
Yep.
it was. And it was like, yeah, like you go in because you tune in with the emotion and everybody and you feel the bliss and everything else that's going on. Because I was like, isn't it too overwhelming sometimes when you're like in a crowd of people? It's like, hell yeah, man. Like, why do you think people go for those things? It's like really enjoyable. Like you get the, like, yeah,
The
the excitement.
Exorcist, yeah. I find it so funny, and this is how powerful the universe is. I just finished the book Stealing Fire, which was recommended to me by Drew Mac,
Okay.
whatever, McCon. I don't know his last name. But Stealing Fire talks about achieving ecstasy in different ways, right? And I will preface this that it does talk about using psychedelics as one method to achieve ecstasy, which he and I have talked about the fact that I tend to be leery about that stuff, given that I have struggled with addiction in the past. However, the book also shares a whole myriad of different tools and strategies to achieve that ecstasy, that like oneness. And one of the things that they shared was EDM. And originally when I thought about that back in my days of doing drugs and stuff, I immediately thought, well, of course, because people are on ecstasy and all these mind altering drugs, but that's actually not true. They found that in the research, a lot of it has to do with the community connection, and the lights and the music itself allows you to create that experience of like oneness and joy that we as individuals, I think, are constantly striving to seek. So the fact that you brought it up is super cool.
Yeah, and usually that's to my understanding and experience so far is that because we're already in that state, but we're kind of like going against our own feelings and everything, and convince ourselves that we're miserable through like other programming and other things, and that kind of like allows us not to go there. But you everyone's original state of being. It's bliss and love, and this like oneness with everything. It's just great. And then the other thing is like, if you think about it, back in the day, people were doing shamanic drumming circles and other things like that that'll like give you like the beat, like the EDM. You got the doop 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 doop. You got the beat, you got the lights. There's no fire like shamanic, circles and anything else, but you kind of go in an outer state of being, and you kind of tune in, and for that maybe particular second, ego dissolves, and you're just
Yeah.
like in the moment, which is
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. And then, I think about the moments that I remember most. Like, what are the most profound moments? They're the ones that I experienced joy, like complete bliss. Whether it was sitting under a tree at a lake, just enjoying like the scene of the natural setting, or playing with my child or
Right.
whatever. And it's true, like in that joy, your ego no longer is in command, and you are essentially one. You're just there. And so I'm curious for you, what do you do to cultivate fun in your life on the daily, if anything?
I don't know. It usually comes in the moment. If I feel like I want to do something goofy, like if the child inside wants to do something goofy, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I even tell you this. Like, at one time we were in the store waiting on the cashiers to like, ring our purchases, and the people behind me, I think they were whispering about something, and so I turned around and I said, "What are we whispering about?" And that freaked them out.
But I love that.
And it also embarrassed my wife too, because she's like,
Yeah.
What are you doing?" You know what I mean? But it was kind of like it felt okay. It felt
Yeah.
like in that moment, it felt just great. So I don't
Well,
know.
it's so funny. Like even today, me and Nana made a highly inappropriate video. And it was because it was fun. I was like, I literally am going. So, for context, people, Nana does not drink coffee, and I love coffee. And so I said to him, "Hey, I'm tired. We're going to have to stop for coffee." And he gave me one of his, like, not that he really cares, but he always does that when he hears coffee, because he's not addicted to it, so he doesn't get it. So jokingly, I'm like, "Well, I'll give you head." And he started laughing. I'm like, "We should make that into a video." And we did. And, a lot of people, that's something that they would think about and never say. Me and Nana just don't care. I'm gonna put it out there because I thought it was funny. It cracked me up, and it is what it is. And
It is funny, yes.
it is. And but I think, like, that's the thing, the spur of the moment, the joy that we have, not only creating with that, but some people would find that entertaining. Some people would find it offensive, but to me, I, like you, just do what comes natural, and I just trust that it is going to be what it is. It brings me joy, so that's what I care about.
I mean, I don't act like that all the time. I have to be like, I don't know, in a certain mood or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, like inspired. That's what we keep saying. Inspiration comes back to do whatever, like inspiration to sing or draw or hum or meditate and other things. Like sometimes, and I cut myself doing that. Sometimes when you stick into a loop, like something that you do on a daily basis, like a program or like a habit. Okay, that's the right word I was looking
Yeah.
for. So when you stick in a habit of, like, say, meditating in a certain time in a certain place, for a certain amount of time, and when that doesn't happen, you're kind of disappointed because you have that expectancy, because like there's no spontaneity, and you just kind of like disappoint yourself, and you go like, oh, maybe I'll fall off the wagon or something else will happen. So when you recognize that, you just go with what feels right. Like if you don't feel like meditating, you're not going to meditate. Maybe you'll do it later. It doesn't have to be in that exact order. Now
Yeah.
structure can be helpful, because I know when I was meditating at the beginning, um, in hypnosis they have um, they call that an anchor. Like when you kind of do something with your body, like you sit in a certain position and you keep repeating it, or maybe you hold your fingers like that, and your body remembers and it anchors it and it helps you go in that state repeatedly faster every time. Kind of like in an example, as an anchor will be like going to sleep. As soon as
Yeah.
your head hits the pillow, your body knows, okay, it's time to sleep, and it turns off.
Yeah.
So to people that are having like really, really busy minds, that'll be a good thing to start a structure with. But I sidetrack just to you know simplify it a little bit and say there's no wrong way to do it. Like you can do it anyway, whatever way you feel inspired to do it.
Yeah, I love that you said that. You and I talked offline. I was telling you the other day. I mean, I meditate every single day. And for years, right, I did create that very like systematic, structured routine. And over the course of the past 2 years, specifically the past one, my routine has been less regimented, and so I'm a huge believer in fluid discipline. I tell all my clients, right, I do believe that, discipline is the ultimate act of self-love, but I don't believe that I have to be dogmatic in how it is I show up in my practices, meaning I don't wake up, do X, Y, and Z, but I used to. I needed that. I really did, because I had an addictive mind. I had that monkey mind. But now my anchor is my body, meaning my body tells me when I need to do one of those things, instead of me having to have that
Yep.
routine so embedded into me. But going back to fun real quick, because I think you're right. It does need to be spontaneous. And for me, I want to actually shout out Nana for that, because I mean, we bring out the joy in each other so well. Like it's like we're naturally inspired to be ridiculous together, whether we're in a grocery store picking up squash, or whether we're whatever on the streets of Boston, right? And I think that's why I enjoy relationships, for me, that I just have fun, and it just brings me joy, and like there's just I just am. And then of course also being able to say, I mean, even looking at non-assistant, say, hey, I mean, can you record this? And her being like, yeah, I got you guys. And just, that acceptance of, you can be fun and spontaneous and inappropriate by some people's standards, or just real, because most of us think totally seemingly inappropriate thoughts, just most people don't put voice to it, right? um and be accepted, and that really serves me in my life. Like that's really, really important to me.
Yeah, and I think part of that thing comes from like going against uh, like your natural self, if that's the right word to say it. It's like you're getting out of your way to resist your own spontaneity and saying, no, I'm just going to not do it because that's not the right thing to do or whatever. Um, because the programming and, the way we were up brought and certain ways we're supposed to be and looked over uh, and that's usually how it is.
Yeah. But
But
go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, it when you come to peace with yourself, and that brings me back to the balance. If you balance, there is what you consider bad and what you consider good in your character that you're playing every day. So if you come to balance both, then there won't be anything that your mind won't resist, because that's the job of the mind, to keep reminding you of things and to keep you busy, occupied, safe, so you don't get eaten by a lion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it does. I love what you said about just being comfortable with yourself. For me, I am pretty fearless. And I show up in whatever way feels right for me, because I've learned that I'm going to attract the people I'm meant to serve, and I'm going to shed the people I'm not. And that's not right or wrong, good or bad. It just is what it is. And if I'm
Right.
filtering out or showing up and then holding myself back from playing with Nana, or, having a water balloon fight with a 4-year-old or whatever, right? Then, and then I may be attracting people who really might not align with me, but because I'm
Yeah.
not keeping it
Yeah.
real, you know what I
It's
mean? And
like,
so,
yeah, it's like you don't have a target and you just shoot your arrows everywhere, and
yeah,
there's no aim. You're just like shooting arrows, and nothing gets to where you want it to go because you're shooting in all the directions.
yeah.
That reminds me of a lecture that I listened to Ramdas, where he was saying that he didn't feel at home because he was moving from hotel to motel to motel, and he caught himself in that thinking when he was walking in the hotel and saying, "Oh, once I'm done with this and I go home," and then he said, "I had to go out because I caught myself thinking then and say, if I don't feel at home in the universe, where am I going to be?" So
Mm.
then he walked out. He said, and walked back in and says hello and I'm home or whatever or something like that, which was like totally amazing.
Yeah, that goes to awareness of our thoughts, which I am, I think the greatest um tool that I ever had or learned was my awareness of thought. Because even if I don't change the thought, right? Even if I catch myself in thinking, wow, I'm not home in this place, and make no changes other than, wow, I just realized I had that thought. Being aware of having that thought is growth,
Yeah,
because
it's
now
powerful.
yeah, right?
Yeah, it
It's
gives you the power. You feel like empowered that like, hey, now I realize that and I don't have to be that way. Yes.
Yeah, and for me, like, I know, and I share openly everything with my community. I know that coffee, like, as somebody who has overcome a myriad of addictions and really strives not to be attached to things, I definitely have an addiction to coffee, and I'm aware of it. And I still make a conscious choice every morning to drink coffee because I really love the taste of it, and I've yet to find something that's suitable that is going to replace it. But just being aware of that, I'm honest with myself, and I'm able to ask myself why it is I'm making the choice I'm making. Is it I'm dependent on it because I'm feeling emotional? Am I dependent on it because I just like the flavor? Or is it a habit that I'm used to in the morning? Some of all of that is true for me, really, because I definitely will drink coffee if I'm feeling more emotional. But it's just being able to know that about myself that helps me kind of keep it in check, going from one or two coffees to like a gallon of coffee a day, which is, believe it or not, what I would watch my people that I love drink. So
Well, you're kind of lucky in a way because you're in the States and coffee here you can drink by the gallon is not as potent as espressos are in Europe. Because like if you drink 3 or 4 espressos, you're gonna have the jitters. You're not gonna be like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Coffee, and 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 that's just through my own experience. Because like I experimented with coffee. I used to smoke too. Like I used to smoke 3 packs a day, and nothing
3
could have
packs of
convinced me.
cigarettes a
Yeah,
day?
nothing could have convinced me to stop. And I was like, even if they make them, because they keep raising the money for
Prices.
the cigarettes. Yeah, the prices were going up. And I was thinking, even if they make them $100, I still smoke cigarettes until like I decided not to, and I just quit. Like I got everything in the house. I had cigars. I have anything that I had. I smoked it all, and I said, all right, this is it. Like cold turkey. Like from now on, I'm not a smoker. And it was weird because like I'll have dreams about smoking. I smell the smells across the street. If somebody's like smoking and walking down, I'd be like a hunting dog. You know what I
Oh
mean? I'll
yeah.
pick up on the scent. Um, but that kind of gave me awareness about coffee. So I experimented with coffee too. And one thing that comes to mind that people don't realize that are struggling with things that are thinking that they don't have choices, they always have choices. So when I was experimenting with coffee, I sat down and I said, okay, what other choices do I have? Like, obviously I'm not going to go to sugar or anything else. So I figure out what's more. It brings me caffeine, and it still kind of like wakes me up, but it's not coffee. So I went to green tea. So I started to do green tea powder, or like
Matcha.
frappuccinos with
Yeah.
like a matcha green tea. Um, and that actually helped to an extent, because coffee also gives you heartburn and upsets your stomach, especially in the morning if you don't like used to having breakfast or anything. And then I got to a point when I experimented and I stopped drinking coffee. Then I had withdrawals for like 2 or 3 days. I'll
And
have
those are
headaches.
awful. Ugh.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And then I'll watch my mind, like how it goes, and try to trick me and says, you usually get this coffee by this time. Why are you torturing yourself? Just go grab a coffee. That'll be good for you. And it'll go away. Um, but it's like the best way I can describe it through my experience is like having a hangover on the next day when you're not like having coffee in the
But it
morning.
lasts for like for me, it lasted a week when I quit. And I quit for 2 months, but I mean, not to go on a coffee tangent, but the reality is I love the taste of like I like it's such a ritual, but I also just love that actual taste of it. So, but it's something we have in common is I smoke too, and I quit cold turkey after 14 years of smoking. My
Ah,
grandma
I didn't know that about you.
yeah, my grandmother bought me my first pack of cigarettes when I was 14, I think. She was really good for getting me my cartons of cigarettes and Coca-Cola. God love my grandmother. May she rest in peace. She's one of my people. But yeah, I quit smoking cold turkey after a crazy experiment on LSD, interestingly enough. And I just felt my lungs collapsing. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to die from smoking. So I quit and I just never smoked again. And that was after being heavily addicted. Like I've been around cigarette smokers and smoking for so long. But, the will I wasn't aware at that time. It was pure grit. I didn't stay aware of like how my behaviors were when I was quitting. I just remember it took an incredible amount of willpower to quit smoking cigarettes. But coffee still is like that's a beast. I didn't have the headaches quitting cigarettes that I have with quitting coffee.
Yeah, coffee is tricky, um, especially if you experiment with like obviously when you quit smoking, your taste buds are back, and you get greater taste for foods and everything else. In coffees, they have that different ways of preparation. They have like a different oils and aromas. Um, you can go crazy, like
Yeah. Oh,
you know what I mean, and all that stuff comes to mind when you think about it.
yeah. Well, so it's so funny. So going back to having fun, right? Because I think, when we have fun, we experience ecstasy. So we can experience a oneness, which I think is where our drive for addiction comes from is we feel disconnected and we feel separated. And to your point, we have been conditioned to condition ourselves out of joy. So it is a natural state. But think about it. I can't even tell you how often, even now, I'm like, wow, I'm super blissful. Something's like off. And that is just because like or I'll be super blissful and I'm like, oh, I gotta do work. I need to go. I'm not being productive. Like it is like such an embedded belief that
Right.
I catch myself. So, when we're
Do you
talking,
ever do you ever have the feeling that something will go wrong because you're like in that bliss, and it's like naturally thinking, if I go up too much, I'm bound to come down, and
yeah.
something bad's gonna happen, and you kind of
And then
like pump the brakes down, and you're like, oh no.
yeah, yep. And then, and then of course, because you and I understand power of thought, something inevitably does happen because you've just manifested something to prevent you from staying in that bliss state. But I'm curious. So, like, you kind of touched upon it with coffee, but what I found fascinating about the book I just read, Stealing Fire, is they talked extensively about how companies such as like Coca-Cola and Lay's potato chips and all these different companies are studying the effects that food pairings play on the receptors in our brain that trigger the same experience as having joy or meditating or any of the things that you can do to achieve ecstasy, like having fun. And I think, wow, like that's profound, because if we're not aware of that, then we're naturally going to be leaning into things that create that experience for us, but are super fleeting, right? So today I was infused with this joy and stuff, but because I had that experience, like this joy is cultivated and it lasts a long time. If you create that same experience with a quick, I don't know, eating a bonbons or, you know, drinking alcohol, right now you need to keep chasing it because it happens so quickly, it doesn't have long lasting effects. And that's where awareness is super important, because people have to understand they feel like they don't have control. And it's not that they don't have control, they're just not aware of how big industries are capitalizing on most of our lack of knowledge around how our brain operates.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about making like a short reels and talk about like the daily programming. Because as a hypnotist, people think like, "Oh, you're gonna make me bark like a dog or something," and it's not about that. It's more about dehypnotizing you from your daily trance that you already induce in yourself. So a lot of the times, you hear it on the radio, you're driving a car and you hear something coming along and says buy this product, or like us on Facebook, find us on, and those are direct commands. They don't say if you like to, they say directly like find us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, like us, direct commands, buy now, and it goes on and on. Not only in media though, it's also in the marketing. Like a lot of people were like when they go on marketing to courses, people tell them how to market and how to do it and how to have like buttons to act and all that. Do you hear that?
Our show,
Ah, my little guy.
is he not allowed to join the show?
No, he's
Okay.
supposed to do something right now, so no.
So he's trying to avoid what his responsibility is. Well, you know what though? I think, yeah, so interestingly enough, to your point, I think one, you should absolutely create reels on that, because the lack of knowledge around that is pretty wide. And secondly, you know, there was an example in the book that you just said, where the company Jeep created this wild experience at a big festival, right? You had this Jeep, you got to go off-roading in this mud patch, whatever. There was music, there was lights, right? So it created this experience in your head. And guess what happened? Jeep sales went way, way up because people associated the Jeep with that one experience, despite the fact that you're not probably going to be like off-roading and experiencing that music and lights and stuff more like most of the time, but it was that.
Exactly, because once you create it in your mind and you have the experience, then that becomes your reality. And
Yep.
it's like you're already having the Jeep. It's like you're already driving the Jeep. You already like not only envisioned it, but you actually get on the Jeep and you drove it. And that's why it's a lot of times salespeople do that on cars. Like they say, take her for the weekend, and if you don't like it, bring her back. No hard feelings. And of course, if you take it for the weekend, you're just gonna bring it back.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, and so for me, I'm very conscious of that, right? And I'll give you an example. We all get algorithms in our social media feed all the time based on our preferences, and mine is all things neuroscience, all that. And I'll watch what they feed me in terms of ads all the time, just to kind of be aware. And so I'll click on it, and then if I click on it once, then I check how many times they display that same ad within a certain amount of time in my feed. And it's extensive. And if you're not aware of that, no wonder you're constantly clicking. And then secondly, that becomes our reality. So we go get the Jeep, but we're not having that experience anymore because it's not the same environment. It's not. So what do? We go for an upgrade. So this Jeep isn't working for me. So now I'm going to go for the next level. I'm going to go get the bells, the whistles. I'm going to have the strobe lights and stuff, right? And that's how we fall into this trap of overspending or addiction, because the original experience is never going to be recreated, and so it misses the mark, and now we keep chasing another experience.
Yeah, that's how it usually is, and that's why you're striving for the new model, a new model, and every 6 months you get a new model of iPhone or new model of Samsung or something else. And in your brain, you're thinking, only if I have it, I'll feel happy, and you got that empty happiness for like, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe a day or two.
Yeah, and then you could hit click again to buy the next thing. And speaking as somebody who, I tell my community all the time, guys, I was a compulsive shopper, like compulsive. I worked in a clothing industry. I worked for Nordstrom, where if you go around Nordstrom, there are people who are dressed to the nines. They have the best perfumes and stuff. And I had access to it. I had discounts. I still to this day have 20 leather jackets and unbelievable amounts of leather boots in my wardrobe. Everything else I got rid of, but I love leather, so I kept it. But the reality is I was working so much because I didn't have a sense of self. I was striving to be worthy of love. I was miserable because I didn't love working so much. And so I would get that quick dopamine hit every time I saw something nice and shiny and new, and I would buy it. And so, despite making six figures, I was always broke because I was buying the newest, greatest outfit for my daughters or myself or whatever. So,
Yeah, that usually happens with a lot of people, and I was one of them too. I'm guilty of, like, entertaining ideas like that, and I still do from time to time, where I just have to marinate and say, all right, I'm gonna sit on it, see how it feels. Like, do I really need this? Like, is this gonna like change my life? Really, is it gonna like be a tool and help me, or is just one of those things that I feel like impulsively to like get it just because I can get it,
yeah.
you know? So yeah, it's interesting, but in I gotta tell you, like the other day, I got a call. Like somebody was trying to sell me something in a very sneaky way, and it kind of turned me off. And then towards the end, the guy said, "Did I offend you in some way or something? Like, or how did I offend you, sir, for like not participating or anything?" And I'm thinking to myself, well, first of all, you lied to me right straight up at the beginning. He said, "Oh, we're doing a survey. Like, we'd like to ask a couple of questions." And I said, "All right, I don't have much time, but I'll participate in your survey." And then he started to ask me weird questions and said, "Well, how is this related to a survey or anything?" And then he said, "Well, I'm not going to be able to," and this is the giveaway. He said, "I'm not going to be able to help you if I don't have all the information." And I say, "Hang on, I thought we were doing a survey. How is this becoming from you helping me into like a survey to you helping me? I didn't ask for your help. You called me up, and then you lied to me." And I got turned off by the whole thing. And I said, "You know what? Like, I don't have time for this." Like, and then the guy get kind of like I don't know. I didn't offend the guy. I like to think that I didn't offend the guy. But then he said, "How did I offend you, sir?" or something. Did I said something? And I said, "No, no, no. It's okay." I said, "You're just doing it wrong." He said, "Well, I've been doing this from since 1969." And I said, "Okay, cool. Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right on. Have a nice day."
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. That remi- that the that reminds me of the Google ads. I can't even tell you how many calls I get for you need to register your Google business on whatever. But there was a time like that I took the call, and much like you, this guy was dishonest. And I said, "Listen, I really feel like I mean, I speak my truth. Like, I call a spade a spade." I was like, "You're very misleading, and this is very unprofessional." And he was like, "And you're supposed to be a coach and da 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 da." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm really good at what I do because I'm calling you out on the fact that you're misleading. It's simple as that. Um, But yeah, I don't know. I really try to be hyper aware of my response because, again, if I'm emotional or whatever, I like you, I might be thinking impulsively to try to fill a void or whatever instead of sitting in that emotion to navigate it and move through it. And so I really try to like just get curious about why it is I'm being called to get the latest whatever or do this or whatever. So,
Yeah, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because like people are not aware. Like if you look around, if you just like watch one day, what are you listening, what are you consuming, like media wise, so social networking, like what other people are doing, you're gonna realize that you're not even living your life. It's like you're following orders from everything that's happening around you. You're just kind of like going on autopilot.
yeah.
And that's the
Well,
only
I mean,
reason I
and
brought it up, though.
that's where um I get really cautious about virtual reality and gaming because they're creating worlds where people can literally disconnect from reality, but they have capitalized so well on how to give you that ecstasy that you can get lost in a non-realistic world for the really rest of your life, if you're not conscious of it. And it leads
That's a
me
really
to,
good topic. We should probably like talk about it on one of the Fridays with the AI and
yeah,
everything
and
else
don't
that's
get me
coming
wrong,
up.
I think AI can serve as a catalyst to help you enhance your practices. I really do. I don't think you have to, you know, shun or stray away from anything. It's just being aware and to what this point is. But yeah, I would be happy to talk about that. But it also goes to, I'm at my daughter's annual physical this past Tuesday, and doctor asks the same question as she always does. Hey, how much screen time are you having? And I answered honestly. I was like, too much. I mean, most kids too much, most adults too much. So my daughter, of course, got a little tight and stuff and didn't appreciate it. Well, later on, just by me saying that and her being my daughter, she looked at her screen time because thank God Apple will sit here and tell you. And she was shocked to find out how much screen time she had. Now, do I think that kids in my kids' generation, my children included, are addicted to their screens? 100%. Absolutely. However, the fact that she was aware of that, then she could make a different choice. And I'm not the mom. I am not going to tell my kids what they need to do because I truly believe they have to figure it out themselves. I'm going to give them the information, right? I'm going to tell them all about cannabis. I'm going to tell them all about addiction. I'm going to tell them about our lineage. I'm going to give them facts on fentanyl. I'm going to tell them about sex, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, if I try to control their behavior, right, they're going to be resistant to it. They're going to do it anyway, or they're going to have a resentment towards me that is going to put up a wall so that they don't feel safe to come to me when they actually need me. And so all I said was, you watch too much TV. She looked at it and she came up with her own plan of action to cut down screen time. And hey, maybe it's 8 hours this week and 7 next week. I don't know. But the fact is she became aware. And because she was aware, she then could make a different choice.
And that's coming all down to awareness. Like really, that's all it comes down to. Like you play with your awareness because like the mind, it's a tool.
I love
Oh
him. He's
no,
persistent, just like me.
he's persisting.
No,
The
no,
mind, the mind, the mind, the mind. It's a tool,
yeah,
so that it always project like thoughts to try to project your predict your future or past, and it keeps you out of like the now.
yeah,
So when you have the awareness in the now, then something else is happening. Totally
yeah.
different story.
Which is really why this goes back to how we started the conversation. When we're having fun, you're generally in the now, right? Because if I'm painting or if I'm whatever, I am just in the zone and I'm not worried about my past and I'm not worried about my future. And interestingly enough, I process a lot of information while I'm having fun. And what I mean by that is, so one of my pastimes is I'm constantly studying muscle hypertrophy and how to build muscle and how to manipulate our muscles and stuff. So I could read an article or whatever and then put it down and just let it go. And then I'll go do something completely fun, like start coloring or, hey, and all of a sudden something will click and I'll put pieces together from what I learned earlier in my head just by playing and not even thinking about it. I'm just and then I have an insight and I'm like, oh crap. And then I go back to playing.
Yeah, that's usually how the mind is, and that's why like the more you try to do something, the more resistant it gets. It's kind of like if you try to fall asleep at night, you can, and the moment you give up trying to fall asleep, then you fall asleep naturally.
Yep.
So it's kind of like that. You get the info, it goes in your mind, then you let it marinate and do whatever, and then you move on, do something else, and then when it's digested and processed, then you'll get the insight, which is happening naturally, which is
Yeah, which is
wonderful. And I'm glad you're aware of that. It's a
yeah. Well,
wonderful tool.
I also think it's important. I've actually employed that technique when I was doing business coaching, and I emphasize play within my daughter's schoolwork all the time because I recognize like we're not meant to problem solve like that. We're not meant to sit for 6 hours and like just go through. When we get up and completely break free from whatever it is that we're being fed, the knowledge we're being fed, and we're outside playing or we're doing art or we're doing choir and stuff, you're absorbing that information in a way that actually helps you retain it and understand it, right? Rather than just trying to have rote memory, which never works because as soon as you don't keep going over and over, you're going to forget it. So, yeah, that's always so interesting to me. But on a completely different topic, you were telling me about some really amazing and fun events going on in the next couple weeks in your area. Want to share?
Yes, yes. So this weekend, Oneness Fest, it's happening, which is in Illinois, and it's this huge festival where they're gonna have like different tents, where they have like a different program. And I encourage everybody to like who's local and watches this video before this weekend to check them out, like in Google Oneness Fest. Each tent is going to have different modalities. They're going to have singing balls and other things like that, and very like-minded people. So shamanic drumming ceremonies, other things, maybe cacao ceremonies, different things. And they have a vendor market, and it's outside, so it's in nature. It's wonderful. So I'm totally looking forward to doing that. But
Well,
then on
I
the same note, yeah, go ahead.
Well, to touch on that real quick, I love that because it hits on some of the things we talked about in this episode, which is right community. So you're coming together with people who are looking for community and looking to experience similar things, even if it's not exactly the same thing, right? If you're here for a singing bowl and you're here for a shamanic ceremony, you may seem like it's different, but it's similar. So I love that it just brings people together. And I love the name oneness because I think when you're in ecstasy, right, when you are having fun, that is when you experience oneness.
That's right. And like I said, there's a vendors market where they're gonna sell crystals, other things like that. I have a couple of colleagues that are gonna be doing hypnosis there. I'm not gonna be going as a vendor. I'm gonna be going as a visitor with a couple of friends, or maybe I'll take the wife and son with. But then following weekend, two events I'm going to participate on, and I'm going to bring them in screen. It's going through the Rooted Holistic.
Yep.
This is the one in Round Lake. Rooted Holistic. It's a wonderful event which kind of brings everyone around. They have like a little corners. I'm going to have a vendors table there. So I welcome anybody to come in and ask me questions about hypnosis or anything like that, or if they even want to experience hypnosis, they never tried it, can do a demo and give them a little bit of experience of that. So that's happening in Round Lake, and then the following day, this is on Saturday, and then on Sunday through the same, I'm going to be in Schaumburg, also on the second through Holistic Healing, a wellness fair. Same thing, different type of practitioners, different type of things. Usually, there's people that do Reiki's and other things like it. So it's going to be wonderful and awesome.
I love
So
that
yeah.
so much. Yeah. So for anybody in either one of those areas, which is not anywhere near me, so I highly encourage you to check it out and raise your vibration, suspend what you think you know, and hopefully, and most importantly, have some fun.
I mean, my personal experience when I go to events like that is it just feels it feels so good. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like the crowd and everything. I can't find words to express it. So I'm so looking forward to it. Last time I was one of those events, I met somebody that was doing verbal channels, and
What
she
is
was
it?
verbal channeling. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah,
like they get in outer state and they channel messages and other things like that.
yep.
Oh, that was awesome. Like you see all kinds of stuff, and it's like if you're into that kind of stuff, that's the place to be.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been to one holistic event. Nana and I got tickets for the whole weekend. We found a singing bowl shop. I bought the singing bowl, was there 20 minutes. And because me and Nana had got a hotel room for 2 days, we spent the next 2 days in the hotel room. So I had a great time too. I just didn't actually experience the festival the way I had anticipated. So, but again, it goes to, and I think this is such an important point to highlight, is it goes to trusting your intuition, and it goes to like just being in the moment and letting things unfold the way they were meant to unfold. Me and Nana could have been like, oh, we spent all this money for this festival that was supposed to be at for 2 days, but we didn't. We were like, why get out of here and go chill? And we're like, and so I guess for me, with my final parting words for episode 16 is, it doesn't have to be planned. And even when you plan it, when the things start to unfold and it feels good, trust the breadcrumbs, trust the feeling of feeling good. Don't feel like it has to make sense. Don't feel like you might look inappropriate or whatever. Just allow yourself to go with the experience. And when you do that, the connection, the peace, the joy you feel is indescribable. I really can't, I cannot put into words the joy I feel when I allow myself just to be.
It's not only you; it's everyone, and everyone has the ability to do it. We just don't do it.
Right. It's because
Yeah.
it's a permission.
It's just like yeah, you have to give yourself permission, or what's the word for it? Not blessing, but kind of like be good to yourself.
Yeah.
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 So
Any parting words?
that was gonna be it. Be good to yourselves. Find out who you are. Find out truly who you are. What do you stand for? And don't be scared if those things change a little bit because we're kind of lost and we're all finding our way home. So
Yeah.
don't feel discouraged if you say, "Oh, maybe I'm doing this wrong," or "I thought this was me, but it's not me. But is this really me?" Like find out who you really are, and then make a peace with it.
Yeah. Well, and who you are is different every day, right? Like in every moment we have an opportunity to be different because our experiences are shifting and changing. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is be curious, which I say every episode almost, and I'll always continue to say it because it's such an important mindset to have. And also, what you touch a lot about is awareness. Just start to get curious and aware of even just one habit. Why is it I drink coffee in the morning? Is it because I love it? Is it because I need it? Is it because it's just what I know? Is it, you know what I mean? Just ask those questions, and you don't have to change your behavior. Just ask your question. And in asking that question, you learn who you are over time.
That's right. You're 100%, my
Cute.
friend. It was pleasure vibing with you, and I encourage our viewers and whoever watches in the recording, reach out to us, ask us questions, um, send us your thoughts, your feedback, in anything that really drives you. We're here for you.
Yeah,
Like in any way we can help, show any, share information or anything. I'm more open to it.
I love it. Awesome. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of For No Particular Reason. We will catch you on the flip side, and hopefully, when we do, you will have experienced more fun.
That's right. Good night.